And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. So today I actually have a very special guest with me. I have an actor named Jake Jensen, and we're going to be talking about his acting career. We're going to talk about challengers. We're talking about a whole bunch of stuff here tonight. I cannot wait to dive into this. This is going to be fantastic. It's a pleasure to have him on here for the very first time. So without further ado, let's go on ahead. Let's get on with the show, and let's do this. And hey, Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
It's awesome to have you here. I've been like I said to you in the studio. I've been looking forward to this all week and all month, basically. So my thing is this. I ended up liking. I love challengers, even though here's the thing. I'm not a big tennis player or anything like that. But what I do appreciate with a tennis movie and things like that is them explaining rules to us as someone that doesn't follow tennis or anything like that. And something that's also why I like the Shia LaBeouf movie a while because of the fact that they were able to actually incorporate people who haven't played tennis and how it got involved with that. So I thought the film for challengers was really good too. My thing was this. So how did you come about with challengers and things like that?
In terms of booking the role,
Yeah,
or
yeah, in terms of booking.
I think the fact that I actually played on the Challenger circuit as an athlete, so I understand that world, and I think that really helped me to get the role because I understood what it's like to be out there on the Challenger circuit playing. I was a collegiate tennis player, and then I played on the Challenger circuit for about a year and a half after college. And I think they did a pretty good job depicting what it's like out there on the Challenger circuit. But I think having that background in tennis then really translated to understanding the role, and then just on my resume as well, the fact that I'm a tennis player, I think helped a lot with casting.
That's good though, man. My question is this though. So did you actually have to coach any of the other actors as far as trying to help them with their roles or anything like that? Since you do have a background in tennis or anything, I'm just kind of
Well, they had Brad Gilbert, who's a pretty well-known tennis coach on set that was helping with all the main actors, learn tennis. But it was funny, as I was riding in the van with Josh O'Connor, who plays Patrick Zweig in the film, I did explain to him what a tiebreaker is. And a tiebreaker is the final, scene in the movie where he's playing Mike Faust's character. So it was interesting that I wasn't hired to do that, but I was explaining some of the rules to him as we had like a 45-minute ride from Boston to where we were shooting. So that was kind of fun to get to explain a tiebreak to him.
it's pretty cool though. I mean, that way he actually has some groundwork work on what to play with and everything later on in the film though too.
Absolutely, yeah.
So my thing is this too, like what got you into acting? And when did you know, hey, look, this is what I want to do? Because I'm always interested in knowing whenever actors get bitten by the acting bug. Because I know that's something that I don't know if that was something that always fascinated you, or if that was just something that you're like, look, I want to give this a shot just to see what happens.
I thought about it when I was young, and then I enjoyed acting when I was young, did a few plays, school plays and things. But then I got super into sports and tennis, and that really took over my whole teenage years and through college, where my main identity was an athlete, a tennis player. But I remember I had a professor in college, an English professor, who took me out to lunch when I graduated. And he said, don't answer this out loud, but if you could be anything that you want to be in this world, what would it be? He's like, don't just think it. Don't say it out loud. And actor immediately came into my mind. And I hadn't thought about acting for, 15 years or so. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can't actually like tell anybody that, because I haven't been acting. I haven't done anything for, but it just was something that was in my mind, and I kept coming back to it. And finally, when I was about 26, I'm like, if I don't start pursuing it now, it's not that it's ever too late, but if I really want to do this, I need to start acting, and that's really late 20s is when I started taking acting classes and really thinking about seriously pursuing acting. But that seed, I think, had been in there for a long time.
That's you know what though? That's something that I can actually relate to because it was something that I always wanted to do as a kid and everything. And you're like, I don't know if I can do this or not. People when people take me seriously is my thing though too. Is like, and are people just thinking that I'm just too much up in the clouds of like, yeah, okay, you're gonna be an actor. This is never gonna happen. You need to have some groundwork and everything and have a plan B because because here's the thing, if plan A doesn't work out, you need to have a did your parents ever encourage you into doing acting, or was that something where it's like, look, I like what you're wanting to do, but you need to have a plan B. You need to do a trade, and then go back to doing acting because my mom was like that. Where it's like, you know what, you need to have a plan B, but I want to do plan A. If I wanted plan B, I would go with plan B first, and it'll be my plan.
Yeah. Well, I was actually in grad school pursuing a PhD in sports psychology, and I suggested to my parents that I drop out and pursue acting. And you would have thought that the world was ending. Um, so I quickly, I kind of anticipated that, but I was just testing the waters to see what they would say. Especially my dad. I mean, you would have thought I just, yeah. I mean, fireworks went off. So, but I ultimately decided to stick it out and finish my degree, which I'm actually really glad I did. It's ultimately given me some financial stability that has allowed me to pursue acting and not be worried about where am I going to, pay my rent every month. So actually, I'm glad that happened. And my mom's always been very supportive, even uh, since then. But my dad still is not exactly. He's like, I don't understand why you can't just focus on your sports psychology career. Why you still have to do that acting thing? And I'm like, Dad, you just don't get it. But it's good. He's coming around slowly.
That's a good thing, though. That's
Yeah.
such a good thing that he's starting to be more supportive and things like that. And you have the support of your family as well, because it's hard to actually. I can imagine as a parent it would be hard. It's like you want the best for your child and everything, and and they're wondering, okay, is he going to just waste his time doing acting? Is this going to be if this is going to be big? He needs to actually have something to actually support himself with aside from that, because it is hard out there to be able to do acting
Yeah.
like that too, because there's a million actors out there that are waiting tables, doing stuff. At least if you have a plan B, you'll be able to support yourself while also trying to balance the acting life too, which I think also helps out. So my question is this though too, like so your degree is psychology for sports? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's actually my degrees, my master's and my PhD are actually in sports psychology. It's a division of psychology now that's recognized as its own kind of subfield within
Mm.
psychology, and it's really growing. I mean, the number of Olympic athletes, as I'm watching the Olympics right now in Paris, the number of athletes that are working with sports psychologists is just exploded over the last 10, 15 years. I think it's a really important part of pretty much every professional or Olympic level type of athletics team or even individual athletes. So and honestly, I think it's helped me as an actor too. Just being resilient, knowing how to manage stress and anxiety, handling pressure situations. I think all of that training as an athlete and then as a sports psychologist has helped me. Has helped me definitely as an actor as well.
That's fantastic though, and you're not lying though when it comes down to the Olympics and things like that too, because mental health is actually the thing that I believe in though too. And I remember a couple of years back where you actually had an athlete that had to leave because of the fact with her mental illness. And she's like, "Look, I need to go. I can't do this. This is overwhelming." And I think having an on the field sense of having a psychologist there help them as they're going into their career of being an athlete for the Olympics is a great thing. You don't see that anymore. You don't see anything like that.
Yeah, and you even look at somebody like Simone Biles. I mean, she's the goat of gymnastics, and she was not immune to having. She got the twisties in the last Olympics, and a lot of athletes out have ended their career. But if it can happen to her, it can happen to anyone. Where that the pressure just becomes so great, so much that you can't really perform the way that you want to be able to perform out there on the field or on in the arena. So it's amazing to me to see her now come back and perform at such a high level. But I think the nice thing is that even if she hadn't done that, there's now more open discussion about it's okay to take a step away sometimes. It's okay to acknowledge that, hey, I'm struggling mentally, and that's okay. And I need some time. I need to take a break. I need to step away. And so it's just nice to see a lot more open dialogue, I think, now about mental health and mental training and all of the related aspects of that.
Same here as well, because I remember a long time ago where mental health, psychology, and stuff like that was very closed off. You had people that wouldn't even listen and being very closed minded, like, oh, they don't need no psychology. Look at how great they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, are they though? I mean, I said, just because you see the person in front of you, you don't know what's going on in the inside of what they're struggling with.
Absolutely.
I said, you're judging a book by its cover before you don't know this person. You're just seeing them on TV. You don't know
Yeah.
what they're struggling with. And I think that more people actually are more receptive to psychology now than
Yeah.
ever before. And I actually did a review for Goodwill Hunting recently.
Hmm.
And it just amazes me how many doors that film actually opened up for psychology, and also inspired other people to be psychologists, though, too, be able to help people. And I can tell just by talking to you, you just have that kind-hearted uh, vibe about you, to where you just want to help somebody, to help them with their struggles and stuff, and be there for them. But I think that's a fantastic thing to have for the Olympics and for sports in general.
Yeah, and I think, sorry I didn't mean to
No, no,
interrupt
no.
you, but I think it applies to acting world as well. I think sometimes we assume, well, these actors, once you book a big role or once you win an Oscar or an Emmy, that everything's great, and those are great things to accomplish. But that doesn't mean that you still can't be struggling with the things outside of acting, or even just the pressure of expectations, and now being in the media and social media and all of the pressures that come with that. I think it's really important that no matter where people are at in their careers, that doesn't mean they're immune to mental health struggles and
Exactly.
absolutely.
Because I want to talk about this a little bit more, but it's like, okay, you did this film, you won the Academy Award for it. What's next? And you're over analyzing, over and the anxiety of it. I was like, can I top this? And then after that, it becomes another struggle on top of it, top of that. A good example that I'm going to use is the rock band Kitty. One of the not the vocalist, but one of the guitar players. They became popular back in the early 2000s, and it got so overwhelming for her that she had to leave the band because she was not used to being having fans this quickly. They thought it would be a slow process, and
Hmm.
sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It just depends on the thing. But that can be the same thing said for acting as well. Of the fact, you never know how successful a film could be. You never
Yeah.
know that the anxiety, and then next thing you know, it you are on the Academy Award panel to probably maybe win an Academy Award, and then therefore now everybody's asking those questions. What are you going to do next now that you are nominated? What are you going to? What's can you top this film? And it's hard to actually balance that struggle of that. And I think psychology, I think that it's a great thing to actually have, and to
Yeah.
have somebody there for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Job interviews are one of the most pressure situations that people face. I mean, the research shows that job interviews cause levels of anxiety that equal a lot of other, major stressful events in life. Actors are having to basically interview all the time. Every audition is in a sense an interview, and you're only going to book most people, one out of how many, 20, 30.
Right.
and so I have a huge respect for actors and the resiliency it takes to constantly be searching for work. I mean, even well-known actors are not working all the time. I mean, very few are. And I guess in a sense, athletes as well. It's you're basically constantly having to prove yourself to stay on a team to make the next Olympics or the next championship, and it's I have a lot of respect for those performing artists as well as athletes, and just the stress and the resiliency it takes to put yourself out there over and over again.
So my other thing though too is I know, and this is something that I was wanted to ask you though too. So what would you say is your favorite genre to act in? Is it dramedy? Is it comedy? Is it action or drama? Or are you just like a mixed bag? Is like I like anything just as long as it's work for me to do. I'll put in 110%.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've done more dramatic roles, but I feel like I'm still at a point in my career where I'm exploring and open to a lot of different genres. It's interesting. Even when I shot my 30 takes of a couple scenes in Challengers, uh, Luca, the director, was like, "You're really funny. You should do more comedy." And I thought, well, that's interesting because there wasn't that much to base that off of. But he's like, "You're really funny." So comedy is definitely something I'd like to pursue more. I just for whatever reasons, drama has been more what I go out. I go out for more dramatic roles, but certainly I think uh, exploring and doing more comedic roles could be a lot of fun.
I think so too. I think that, drama can actually open the doors up for a lot of things as well. And you also have to have your mindset into the character's mindset and try to open doors from probably some stuff from your past and put that into the character's perspective too, you're doing it. A comedy is not is it would you say is more complex because of the fact that you're trying to find a range of emotion versus doing a drama where it's basically, well, I can relate to this character easily. I can be able to know what this character needs versus a comedy because comedy is the most subjective, most hardest thing to get, even as an actor, because everybody's humor is different. So it's like, okay, am I trying too hard? Am I reaching too hard? Am I overselling this? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, and I think the timing of comedy, that's I feel like drama you're rewarded for taking sometimes more time and slowing the pace down, whereas comedy it's quick and it's fast, and I think for the people like me that overthink things, that then I get rushed, and the timing's hard to get. So I have a lot of respect for comedic actors, and obviously there's all different types of comedy as well, um, but I think the timing for me is the biggest challenge, is just getting that timing.
I can definitely see that because you also have to have balance with the other co-star that you're with though too, and trying to bounce off of them and try to get the vibe that they're going for. And if your timing is slow paced, in a sense, you could lose the audience or you could lose the actor that's playing the character as well. So I can definitely see that. Now, what would you say was the most challenging thing for you as far as auditioning for a role?
That's a great question. Before COVID, it was absolutely going in the room and not letting all the distractions get to me. When you went in to the room, there was especially for a callback or a chemistry read, there would often be a whole panel of individuals there judging, making decisions about whether you book the role or not. So you'd have the camera on you, you'd have the casting director, but then you'd have sometimes producers, director, and not letting that, just using that energy of the room, but not having it distract from you're there to play that role. Honestly, since COVID, for the most part, auditions have all become self-tape, at least the first round of auditions, and that's a whole different challenge of how can I connect to the audience only through what I'm doing on camera, which in some ways is more what we have to do as actors anyway. but then we don't have the benefit of actually being in the room and getting to meet people and making those connections. So I think for me, it shifted from I was finally starting to really feel comfortable in the room. And now I'm still figuring out, well, how can I make an impression, build relationships with casting directors and things when I'm not going in the room. So it's weird. I
Right.
felt like I was finally getting that momentum of like, I really enjoy being in the room now with casting and with producers and things. And then it went one day, literally I auditioned for King Richard, and a couple weeks later I'm you know, at my parents' house and stuck with them for, no, I don't mean, it was a privilege
Right.
to
I gotcha.
spend time with them, but we were in, lockdown for COVID. So I think that's been an interesting, the momentum of my acting career has been interesting to
How it
get
reversed.
going, because there's been so many of these interruptions with COVID, and then we had the strike last year, and so it's been an interesting. The last, 3, 4 years have been an interesting time to be an actor.
Right. I definitely agree with you on that, and I know that it can be intimidating inside, as well, inside those audition rooms as well. Then trying to get in the mindset of the character, then also to making sure that you're doing your job and also not trying to overanalyze what they're trying to do. And then finally you get the momentum, you get what you're trying to do, and then all of a sudden life changes, things change, and now you're stuck sending in videotapes,
Yeah,
stuff like that, and they don't. I feel like this. I love the audition tapes and stuff, things like that, but I don't feel like they get you as a personality, as someone that's trying to become a character, because then it just feels. I don't know. Am I overanalyzing this, or is this baseball? But does it seem like, okay, well, this guy is just sending a tape and that's it? There's no structure to him because of the fact that it's just on tape and we can't guide him the way we need to because he's not in the audition room where we can try and get him to redo this again. Because it's either you send in the tape, they love it, and that's it, or they go on ahead and then they're on to the next one because they're not sure about that first tape that they see. Am I wrong about that, or am I right about
no,
that?
I think you've got it. I think you got it. Just you nailed it. And I think now, even though we are booked on the job we do is getting into that character and portraying that character, they still are making choices, at least when you go in the room, of is this somebody that I also would want to work with, or that I see would be somebody that the director, the production would enjoy having on set. And I think I certain people give off a certain energy and vibe that, oh, this is the kind of person that we like their audition, but we also like them as a person, and there's somebody we'd really want to work with for multiple weeks or multiple months. And I feel like the self tape kind of took that part out of it. So yeah, maybe it's more focused just on our acting, which can be good or bad, but it takes away that, hey, this is somebody that I really energetically connecting with as well. And I feel like that's what we've lost a little bit, which I feel is unfortunate, especially for those of us really, trying to make, get a foot in the door and book bigger, more and more, bigger and bigger roles.
Right, and just make more contacts with them and things like that too, because you want that human interaction. It's hard to do that on a videotape as well, and also too, I think that your anxiety would be even more threatening with it being on a videotape versus being inside the same room with them. That's
Yeah.
because I'll be like, "Well, am I stumbling through this? Am I not good enough? Am I and is my tape good enough? What did I do wrong? What am I gonna do? Am I gonna can I sleep tonight knowing that I sent this off? Is it trash? Do they think of?" And then I could just imagine the anxiety that that you're having to carry with the videotape versus inside the audition room. Even though there is some anxiety in there, but at least a little bit of a nod from them, or at least,
Yeah.
"You know what? That's a great performance, Jake. You did great. We'll call you," and you walk out and like, "Okay, maybe I nailed this. Maybe I didn't, but at least I know I got a good job." Audition tapes, I don't know if they actually say, "Well, you did a great job" or not, but I know that my anxiety would be all over the place.
Well, you usually don't get any feedback at all, which honestly I miss having, because it was actually nice to get casting directors giving some redirects. When you go in the room, hey, let's try it. That was a good take, but let's try it this way. Now for the most part you just have to make those choices yourself, and you can totally get in your head about it. I used to like do 20, 25, 30 takes on self tapes. I've gotten much better. Now it's like, okay, three or four, and usually the second, third one's the best one, and then they get worse after that. So it's just like, let's just send it in, and that's what I have to do. But I know a few years ago I was, 30 takes, and I remember my mom was reading with me on a few, and she's finally like, "That's it. I'm not reading with you one more." So I was like, "Okay, mom, I'm sorry. I'll limit it to like five takes. That's it." So
I'm pretty much the same way with the podcast though too. I'm like, okay, this is my 10th take already. I can't do anymore. My voice is going out.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I because one time I actually did one where I'm like, I forgot my name. I'm like, my name is shit. So I had to go back and redo it. So I definitely understand the anxiety of something and no, and wondering too if like, am I gonna crush this or am I not gonna crush it? And I'm also an overthinker just like you are. I'm like I'm over analyzing it and putting too much pressure on myself. Is there
yeah,
ever a time where it's like, you know what, am I putting too much pressure on myself or am I just just overanalyzation?
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's how I was actually thinking. But another thing I wanted to ask you was this too. So when you audition and everything, is there any other challenge that goes through your mind as well when you're into the audition room?
So you faded out on the last part of your question. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, not a problem. I was just asking if like there was like any other challenge that you faced inside the audition room that that you um that you were going through.
I think I didn't have a lot of experience with these, but chemistry reads are a challenge because you're then suddenly not only acting with, normally the first rounds are with a reader that is not really giving you much. They're kind of almost a blank slate. They're reading the words, but it's really up to you to create. Then in a chemistry read, you're acting suddenly with another actor, and that's exciting in a lot of ways, but it also um, it throws a whole nother level of pressure out there, because then it's like they're seeing if the chemistry is there between the actors, and I think that's something that there's no way to fully prepare for until the more that you have chemistry reads, the better you get at doing that. And I think for me it was just looking at those more as a exciting opportunity and a challenge, rather than being threatened by that. Oh my gosh, who am I going to be matched up with? Who am I going to be reading with? And a lot of that just comes from, the more I think you're in that situation, the more comfortable you get with it. But there's nothing that really fully prepares you for that until you're there in the room with another actor that's also, either sometimes they've already booked the role, but a lot of times they're still making casting choices of which actors work best together, and that's another level of I think challenge. I've done one chemistry read on Zoom. That was horribly awkward. So I'd rather be in the room than do it on Zoom.
Right, exactly. Because Zoom calls, I mean, you go into technical difficulties. There's a delay. There's also it's like very off balance about talking in Zoom.
Yeah,
And even I know my stuff is virtual and everything too, but there's just something about Zoom whenever it comes down to auditions and everything. It becomes very wonky to the point
yeah,
where like I don't know if the chemistry is good. I don't know if the chemistry is bad. And it could land to the point where both of y'all don't get the part because of the fact of how wonky it is, and it's neither one person's fault. And that's one thing that I have to say was bad about COVID was the fact that everything was virtual, nothing was in person, nothing was personal, and I like that human interaction. I want to actually talk to the person in front of me. Mr. Hey, how are you doing, man? But yeah, I just want to say, I like the human interaction. I think that's something that we're missing in today's world. Everything is so high tech and technology and stuff like that. We're missing relationships in today's world, and that's how I am. I just love the human interaction. well for you.
Yeah, so do I. And I think I was making the point earlier. I really actually miss going into rooms, meeting people. I find, my basic personality, I'm an introvert. So I sometimes get overwhelmed with huge groups of people, but I do really appreciate the interaction with, like I love the one-on-one or a couple of people. And I think we need that as human beings, but I think we also need that in whatever industry, whether it's podcast, radio, acting. I think that's something that we're not fully back yet, to from the COVID, era. And I hope we get more back to where it used to be.
Same here as well, because I think that it's important to have those relationships, and you can't really have those relationships behind a screen or anything like that. And I'm also an introvert as well. Like I get claustrophobic at work at Christmas parties and stuff like that. And my boss is like, we have to do this. I'm like, do we? It's like she goes, yes, we do. I'm like, okay. So I'll go on ahead, fix my to go box, and after that I'm leaving. Office. They see me, they know who I am. But that's who I used to be. But now with podcasting, I feel like podcasting has opened the point where it helped me with my own mental health. Yes, I do lock up whenever I'm around a bunch of people that I don't. Yeah, that's just how I feel though. I feel like podcasting has definitely in a lot of ways. And now you can't get me to shut up or anything at work. But let's see here. Okay, so thank you for telling me. I think I know what might be the problem with the mic issue. Okay. Try something.
Yeah, sorry. A few times it's gone out a little bit. For the most part, I've been hearing you fine. I thought it was maybe just my end, so I'm sorry. I should have maybe said something earlier.
No, no, no. It's perfectly fine. I think it's fixed. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear it. If it happens again, I'll let you know.
Yeah, just let me know because sometimes it wants to dip in and dip out. It depends on how things are. You have to love updates for stuff. Okay, now it's perfect. Yeah, it's just because my mic was a little low. So, but okay, so my other thing that I think that I really wanted to dive into was this. I know that you're a huge tennis player. Is there any sports that you love outside of tennis?
Well, yes, not necessarily to play as a competitor, but I'm a big fan of sports in general. I work as a sports psychologist, so I work with athletes from all different teams. So I've become a pretty big fan of a variety of sports. Um, Volleyball, beach volleyball, I love to watch. I'm huge into the Olympics. I've been watching the swimming. I have a twin sister. She was a collegiate swimmer, so I I enjoy watching swimming. I would say probably my favorite spectator sports are definitely volleyball, beach volleyball. I love to watch gymnastics. I was watching today at the Olympics. That's I watch a lot. Um, I grew up in Utah, so Utah Jazz. I was a big Jazz fan. I enjoy watching the NBA. I'm not very good at any other sports, though. Unfortunately, tennis is pretty much where my skills are. But I do enjoy following and watching, quite a lot. Yeah, a lot of sports.
I'm actually the same way though too. I grew up in Boston. I'm a Celtics fan. Grew up in Michael Jordan as well. He was always the goat in the '90s, and that's actually my go-to back in the '90s as far as that goes. And also too, you can with Boston Celtics team in the '90s too. Larry Bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. We actually have the Olympics has been funny. Says swimming causes it's crazy. They swim in them murky waters. Okay.
I don't know if he's talking about the Seine River is where they're doing the open water swim,
Mhm.
and I guess they spent millions of dollars to clean it up. But then with all the rain they've been having, the bacteria levels are not safe now, so they're not even sure they're going to be able to use the river. So I hope they're doing. I think the triathlon swim is there, and then an open water swim. I think the pool, indoor pool where they're doing the other swimming events is fine. Other than I heard I think it's more shallow than a lot of the pools they're used to swimming in. So there's always something, with every Olympics, there's going to be differences in the facilities, and
Right.
athletes have to adapt to that.
Exactly, and that's something I actually looked at today when I was watching. Took a little bit of a peek today at the Olympics because we had it on the ER. So I work at a hospital, and I noticed that the swimming pool is a lot different in Paris than it is in the U.S. So I'm like, that is a challenge in its own self with trying to adapt into the way things are run overseas because the way compared to the U.S. So I think that's actually really fascinating about how each country does their things differently.
Yeah, I just was in Europe for a few weeks, and I love Europe, but there's still just, little things that are different just culturally, and I think for some of these athletes too, we assume, that they've traveled the world as an athlete, but that's not always the case. Some of these athletes are pretty young, and they really haven't competed much outside of, their own countries or their own kind of part of the world. So I think that's one of the challenges of the Olympics is it's in a different location, different part of the world every 4 years, and that every venue, every place it brings its own culture, and that's a great thing, but it also can be a challenge for athletes.
I imagine so because you have to readapt into the way that they usually do things in the US, and then now they're having to do something totally different overseas and try to learn how they do things. It's definitely a challenge in its own self
Well,
as well.
even the Olympic Village in Paris doesn't have AC, and you're sitting there going, that's especially for Americans, we're used to having AC, and I know a lot of Europeans homes and things don't. So even something as simple as that can be a big difference for somebody who's used to being cool inside rather than sweating all the time.
Right. Because that's one thing that I can say though is that we're blessed to be able to be in a country to where we're not sweating all over the place
Yeah.
or anything. Let's see here. I like the NBA players. Okay, that's what changing a lot of them refiles the basketball rules.
I'm not sure.
But
I'm not sure what that was referring to be honest.
me either. But if you can elaborate and everything, we'll be able to go on ahead and try to answer that question or that statement, and that'd be great. Um, but yeah, man, I just love how passionate you are about about sports, about acting, and things like that. That's one of the things that I really um wanted to get to know you better on and everything too. Was like, you know, which one? I know that if you could do both, you would. But which one do you feel like that you're focused more on and dialed in on more?
It really goes up and down. I think it's hard to be 100% equally focused on both at the same time. So
Right.
there's definitely times where I put more energy into my sports psychology career, and then there's other times where I definitely energetically put more into my acting. And for the most part, I feel like it kind of balances out. And I think honestly, it's helped me stay excited, and I think the balance and kind of shifting a little bit, but between the two has allowed me to stay very, very passionate and very motivated because I don't burn out of either one. Some of that's just dictated by schedule. For example, I work at a university, so I'm off during the summer. So that's a great time for me to energetically put more into acting. And then there's, other times where I have to put a little bit more into whether I'm teaching sports psychology or working with certain athletes and teams. But I never fully drop one or the other. There is always a certain level of balance, but just definitely energetically, there's certain times where the focus is more on one than the other. And for me, it works.
I feel like you need to have that. You can't just be focused on both. You have to have that switch on and off both at the simultaneously in order for it to work and have that balance. So I totally understand that. Let's see here. So this is what Mr. Rodea says. NBA players gotta adapt to the FIBA rules, which instead of what they're used to in the NBA, basically. So it's about adjusting to the rules to according to how they have.
Yeah, and I wish off the top of my head, I'm not sure the major differences between the rules that they're using in the Olympics, for example, and what what the NBA is. But I think Olympics are definitely governed by different organizations, so they're going to have their own set of rules and regulations, and that's probably one reason why certain athletes excel at the Olympics, but why some struggle, because it is different from often what their league or their national organization is using. And I think that's part of being an athlete, is just that developing that flexibility. A little bit like an actor, you have to be able to work with different directors, different different production companies, and adjust to that. But I definitely, now after this, I'm going to go look up the differences in the rules.
I'm kind of interested now as myself as well, so I might actually do that, because I'm interested in knowing what the differences between the NBA and how the FBIA is as far as their rules and regulations go as well, because I know that's two different things and totally. My other thing though too is, now if you could would you ever do, which one would you want to do, producing, directing, or acting?
I have done a little bit of producing. I actually have a feature film that I'm an executive producer on that hopefully will be coming out this fall. Feature film, but low budget. I think being a producer with a big budget is a totally different experience than being a producer with a low budget. But I have a lot of respect for producing and just managing so many different actors and cast and crew and locations and everything that goes into that. I think it's challenging. I was actually pretty good at it, because I think my sports psych and my organizational skills allowed me to be a pretty good producer. So I could see myself doing that more down the road, but I would definitely want to have a little bit bigger of a budget to be working with than I did for this last film that I was working on. Directing's never been something that's really been something that I've thought about doing. I never say never. Right now, definitely acting is of those three is what would be most interested in continuing to do and pursue. But there's a lot of projects that I have ideas for, and I think being a producer on some of those would be very exciting.
See, I think that's actually very fascinating, because I know for me, a creative brain that I have, I can never shut it off. So I could just imagine all the ideas that you have in your head just flowing through and stuff like that. Is like, I want to do this. I'm an actor, but I also want to produce. I want to direct. I want to do all these other things and see where it gets me.
Yeah.
And I believe that you're very talented at what you do. I know that you're passionate about what you do. But I just really love your passion for your psychology. I love your passion for your acting and stuff like that, man. I commend you tremendously for everything that you've been doing.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I would love to produce actually a television series about a sports psychologist, because I think there's so many storylines there. I mean, I just based off of the athletes that I work with, I mean, some of the stuff that they're dealing with that comes up in sessions. I mean, I have endless storylines for episodes that I could have, and then you've got the dynamics with coaches and organizations, whether it's university, collegiate sports, or professional. And I just think we have all these medical dramas and law and LA, and NCIS, but I think there's been some shows that have had sports psychologists in them, but I think a whole series on that and really kind of getting an insight into what that's like, I think there's a lot of potential there. So I would love to produce and act in something like that and use all my knowledge of sports psych.
You know what though? I never thought that I would think that Max would actually pick that up, because it seems like something I could just picture it being like a Max TV show.
Yeah.
kind of style, like Sopranos meets sports psychology kind of flavor.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got coaches sleeping with athletes, you've got uh, athletes running off with each other, you've got, I mean, there's just so many storylines, and I think you could definitely, uh, I could see it on like an HBO Max. Absolutely.
I can too. Like I can picture the psychologist. I can picture the coach coming in, but like, hey, look, I slept with my athlete. Well, dude, that's not good. But let's talk about
And
it.
everything's confidential, so unless they're
Right.
imminently going to harm themselves or somebody else, I don't. Everything stays in the room, but sometimes I'm just like, I just go, really? Am I really hearing what's happening and going
But
on?
another thing though too is you can even go as far as like even the therapist needs a therapist
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and go into the psychology of the psychologist and be like, hey, look, I had something that was off the wall with one of my patients. I need to talk about it and stuff like that. So you can even go into that realm though too. Just like how Dr. Melfi had to go see the psychiatrist because of the stuff that Tony was doing. You can do the same thing with the sports psychology. I could see it being played out in my head right now,
Yeah.
and I'm eating it up.
Well, and then I had one client that ended up was stalking me, and I mean to the point where she like cut herself and put bloody handprints on my door and said we're going to be connected forever. And I mean, I have some stories that would make great TV.
That does sound like a drama, though. That definitely does sound like a drama, suspense drama kind of flavor
Yeah,
to it for a season.
yeah.
You know, have that for like episode 3, season 1.
Hook the viewer in, right?
Exactly. But man, it was a pleasure talking to you tonight. I really, this has been a really a great treat for me. I've been looking forward to this all month. I'm actually happy that you came on here. I want to have you back on here again.
Well,
Seriously.
I would love to be back, and yeah, let's do it.
All right. Sounds great, man. But yeah, that's gonna be it as far as this interview goes. It was a pleasure a pleasure to actually have you here. Is there any kind of social medias or anything that you want to actually pitch out there for people to follow you out at and everything? All the links will be in the description, but is there anything that you wanted to really grasp on the audience for?
Well, my social media handle for TikTok, Instagram, and X, I guess what was Twitter, is Jake Jensen Media. So that's it's the same handle for all of my social media. So that's the best way to connect. And Instagram's probably the social media I use the most, but I'm trying to expand and use all three. So
That's how I am. I'm like jumping all over social medias right now. Like I'll go ahead do promos on Instagram, then on Threads, and then on TikTok. I just wish it was all in one thing where you can just send it to every single social media.
I know.
That'd be so much easier.
Yes, it would.
But anyways, but that's gonna be it as far as tonight's show goes. But tune in tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. I have the guys from the Multiverse of Geekdom coming back. We're gonna be doing House of the Dragon season 2. We're one episode away from the season finale of that, so stay tuned for that. I just dropped my Deadpool and Wolverine review. You can also check that on the audio and video podcast. Also have American Pie review for the nostalgia and stuff like that coming out sometime this week. So that's going to be as far as the show goes. Please stay back and everything so I can properly exit you out of the studio and everything too, and talk to you one last time, and we'll close out. All right. All right, guys. Well, have a great and safe night, and we are out.